What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're covering some more r/relationships. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below. But if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too, as it all really helps out. And just a huge thank you to each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day to be here. It really does mean the world to me. And with that being said, let's crack on with today's stories. Much love, guys. Now, our first story comes from Hu Asikimo. I don't know if I pronounced that right, so I do apologise. I, 30 female, caught my husband, 31 male, in an affair, and I don't know how to move on. I've suspected things have been going on for a while, but kept brushing it off. I thought he would never do that to me. Since around April, he's been refusing my attempts to have sex most of the time, sitting differently on the couch to where he's facing away from me. Little things. It's one of our good friends. She came to our house a few weeks ago. She texts me. She's pretending to be there for me. I found out because I rolled over and they were having a Snapchat conversation. She said she wished she could be there to hold him, and he summarised that I tried to seduce him that night and mocked it. I confronted him and he admitted it. He said it was because quarantine was stressful. He does not want to work things out. He thinks of me only as a friend in his heart. When I told her husband, he confronted her and apparently they kissed back in February. I think at that moment I was never going to be enough for him. We used to be so happy. The week before they kissed, we celebrated Valentine's Day together. He bought us a nice bottle of wine for our anniversary. We had fun. We were perfect. I don't know where to go from here. We've been married only about a year. I feel like he took so much from me and he doesn't want to go to therapy to work this out. I don't want to leave my house, but everywhere in it I see him. He chose her. I've been cheated in every relationship I've been in. He was supposed to be my forever. I don't know what to do. I've made therapy appointments, but I was also laid off last month, so I have too much free time to analyse every single moment where he might have been lying to me or where I made myself pathetic trying to cling to him. How do I start to get through this? Now, as they always say in Reddit, well, actually, I don't know if they say in this, I might be making this up completely, about getting your ducks in order. Is that actually a phrase? But yes, you basically need to sort it out so you can have your lawyer and everything, and just be prepared, because you're not going to get this relationship back by the sounds of it. And I know it sounds brutal, but you need to look out for yourself now, I think, anyway. You need to sit back, talk to your lawyer, and get what you deserve out of this relationship, because you've been used. And in the end, you deserve better out of this. He's treated you like shit, and you deserve better, and that's all there is to it. We'll look at a couple of comments, and then we will go to the update to see what finally happened. So Finit says, lawyer first, get divorce filed, and get their advice on if it's okay for you to leave the house while things are processing. As for the other, you need to fill your time, devote yourself to hobbies, including picking up new ones, rely on friends, long video calls, watching movies together, etc. Fill as much as time as you can until things start to process. I'm sorry he gave up on you without even trying, hun. You deserve far better than that. It's a shame some people are good at hiding how little respect they have for other folk, but please hold on to the fact that none of this was your fault. There is absolutely zero reason for a partner to cheat, ever, and there is absolutely no justification that can even be put a shred of the blame on you. And Obitadictor says, you can't go to therapy and work this out. It only gets worked out if both people want to put the effort in, and your husband has made it very clear he's not interested in trying to make the relationship work. He directly told you that. You need to find a lawyer and file for divorce. And Rifter says, call a lawyer, relationships take two, and he's clearly done. Now, let's head over to the update, and hopefully we're going to get some goodness out of this. So, update. I, 30 female, caught my husband, 31 male, in an affair, and I don't know how to move forward. First of all, I just want to say thank you everyone here for the support I received following my first post back in August. At the time, it truly felt like my world was ending. It was important to me to make this update because I need to tell anyone who's currently going through the same thing. It gets better. You will get so much better. I had one conversation with my husband since everything happened, by his choice. It lasted maybe 5 minutes and was like talking to a robot. I know from others that he cries to people about how he ruined his life, but I have never once got an apology or the same show of regret. At this point, I don't care. I know him and the other woman are still seeing each other, and frankly, they deserve each other. Good for them. While I still feel angry occasionally, I no longer mourn what I once had. Instead, I'm so excited for the life I now get to live. I moved to a small walkable city and gave myself my dream apartment. It makes me so happy to see how I've decorated it and just live in a cozy place instead of our old dreary house. I was the breadwinner in our marriage, and he would make me feel awful about wanting to pay for nice meals or do fun things. Since moving here, I've done a ton of foodie fun stuff and don't feel guilty. It's so refreshing. I've dipped my toe into the dating pool again and had plenty of mediocre dates from dating apps. Recently, I found someone who I've recently clicked with, and I'm enjoying how appreciated and desired he's made me feel. It's definitely early and we're moving slow, but overall, dating has made me realise that I'm a catch who doesn't have to settle. Therapy has done wonders and I'm so happy I immediately dove into it. My therapist is proud of me. I'm proud of me. I've stopped looking at being divorced as a failure. He failed, not me. I'm genuinely happy and excited to wake up each morning and no longer feel this terrible weight is sitting on my chest. The holidays were surprisingly easy and I found myself so happy to spend time with family without having to compromise anything. So all in all, life is good and there's so much of it ahead. Looking back, I can't believe I wasted so much time thinking about how I could get him to come home. I've made my own home and my own happiness, and that is worth so much more. And what a wholesome ending. And for anyone going through something similar, take OP's advice. It will get better. It does get better for you. You are worth so much more, than someone who's going to treat you like this. So take OP's advice on this one. And let's move on to the next story. And our next story is from German Metal Girl. Should I get in contact with my dad's family who don't know I exist? Hi, I'm 19, 20 in 2 weeks and female. I was raised by my mum and her mum, and when I was 10, my half-brother who lived with us was born. I never met my dad, and he never knew I existed. He died in November 2001. I was born in January 2001. My mum found out when I was 11 that my dad had died 10 years beforehand and told me a few days later. It was always my wish to one day meet my dad. I remember I always used to wish that before I blew out the birthday candles on my birthday. But after I found out he had died, my wish changed slightly to wanting to visit his grave one day. I never knew anything about my dad apart from 2 things which I found out accidentally. One day when me and my mum were in the greengrocers, a lady said to my mum, "What lovely brown eyes your daughter has. Does she have her dad's eyes?" To which my mum replied, "Yes." All my mum's family has blonde or light brown hair with blue or green eyes and fair skin. I have almost black hair with brown eyes and olive skin. Turns out my dad's family is Italian. The other thing was, when we were at the dentist one time before my brother was born and my mum was filling out my medical form, there was a box for father's medical history, in which she wrote type 1 diabetes, which is basically what he died from. I never knew his name until recently. Last summer, I DNA matched with one of my dad's cousins on Ancestry. 3 years after I actually did the test, I showed my mum, who began to tell me a little about his family. She mentioned she had to get away and asked if I wanted to know why, but at the time I was nervous to know. I still am, but I just want to know. She also said that his sister and brother-in-law were in/going to prison for 5 to 10 years. She never specifically mentioned who, but that they were violent. Never said anything positive about any of them. It seems she doesn't really know much about the family, so I guess she didn't really meet his family at all. Anyway, I'm not sure what to feel about what she told me. I still feel the same as I did when I was little about wanting to visit him, and I check in daily with various of his family's Facebook pages, as a lot of them practically spend their lives on Facebook. All I can think about at the moment is reaching out to them, but then I'm scared that they might reject me. They don't know I exist. At night, I'm even dreaming about the scenarios that may or may not happen. It seems the violent side of the family is my dad's children. From his first marriage before he married my nan and had 2 more children, including my dad. From what I can see on Facebook, my nan's side of the family seems fairly family orientated and genuinely nice. My uncle enjoys hunting and fishing, and that's what he does as a job. Typically I'm vegan, but there's no way I'm going to let that stop us from getting to know each other, unless he won't get to know me because I'm vegan. I'm just feeling quite stuck, as I'm worried, 1, I will upset my mum by getting in contact with them, but she has said to me to tell her beforehand if I decide to get in contact with him so she can protect me, and 2, that they won't want anything to do with me anyway, which honestly I don't think I'll be able to cope with. Now this could be incredibly, you can't really give advice on this with the information that we have, because it's an incredibly tough situation. There's so many little things going on, like the mum saying that they're violent, and why did your mum want to get away? The only thing I could really say is that I'd get the full story from your mum first. Although you may be nervous to receive it, you really need this information before you proceed, because you may be able to proceed with a more clearer mind with that information, right? You need all the information you can before you can do anything in this situation. But Optimus Prime Time 21 says, it's really up to you. I'm 31 and never met my father or anyone from that side of the family, and at this point I have no interest. A younger me always wanted to though, never for acceptance, but to see if I look like any of them. Lol. And Lorna Carter 10 says, I understand you're excited and want to know your dad's family, but based on what your mum said, I would recommend proceeding with caution. There is a reason your mum left. Try getting the full story from her, and if you still want to reach out, then you should. And Husky Girl 86 says, one of the best short stories I've read is 2 sentences long. A gift must not open. Curiously, Pandora opened the box. Your Italian family could be anything from actually super nice to absolutely overbearing, criminal, and involved with a mafia type organization. If your mother felt the need to not tell your father about her pregnancy, not ask him for child support while he was alive, not ask for any inheritance he might have that would likely be passed on to you as his only child, move away, not say anything positive but keep anything negative to herself except for mentioning 2 criminal siblings of your late father, this clearly indicates there's more going on than you know, and likely more than you'll be able to find out from your mum. I'd recommend postponing getting in touch with your father's side of the family. You don't know if it's a genuine gift if you did, or if you better keep this gift locked like Pandora's box. Don't open it until you have a better idea of what you may have to expect, and don't open it in the middle of a pandemic, because if the worst case scenario happens to come true, moving someplace else could turn out to be much more difficult than in normal times. Now, what would you do in this situation? Are you in this situation? Have you never met one of your parents or their family and have been tempted to get in touch? Let us know in the comments below. And the next story comes from Sunrise Sundown. My girlfriend says she won't stick around if I keep hanging out with my female friend. On mobile, so me, 23 male, and my girlfriend, 26 female, are having an issue with my friend, 25 female. Jane, my girlfriend, does not like the fact I go and hang out with my friend Cassie by myself. I told Jane that I don't have any feelings for Cassie and that I never had a sexual history with her as well. Cassie and I were friends before Jane and I started dating. Currently it's been 5.5 month relationship with Jane and I'm really in love with her. The issue got brought up because one weekend Jane was busy and wanted to be alone. She wasn't answering my calls and was acting cold through text messages, so I just planned my weekend and hung out with friends. One day being a breakfast outing with Cassie. When Jane and I finally talked and I told her about my weekend, she was like, "How do you think that's okay?" And I was kind of baffled. She also said, "You realise she likes you and don't play dumb." At the end of all this, she said she would not stick around for that. To me, that insisted she didn't trust me and that I would date Cassie in the end. I don't feel anything for my friend other than a friendship. Extra facts about Cassie. Mostly hang out with her in groups and only hung out with her 3 times total by myself. The weekend Jane was being cold, I told Cassie she wasn't really talking to me. Cassie just said that I was probably overthinking it, which I thought was friendly advice. Sometimes we text and FaceTime. Please let me know if I'm starting something bad here. I love Jane, but I'm not sure if maybe being Cassie's friend is a good idea or not. Maybe hanging out one-on-one is a bad idea. If you need more information, ask. And a couple of people were sharing their perspectives down in the comments, with Low Jaded saying, "Hi OP, giving you a girl's perspective. My ex-boyfriend has this female best friend. At the beginning of our relationship, I was so insecure of her. They'd been friends for 2 decades and had travelled together, slept in the same room together, and I wasn't sure how they were only platonic friends. Even though he always told me they were. So I told him my concerns and he introduced me to her, and I hung out with them occasionally and I realised they were just friends. He even used to tell me they were, and I realised they were nothing more than friends. Maybe it would be a good idea to introduce Cassie to Jane, hang out with both of them together and show Jane that you and Cassie are just friends. If you're all just friends, the vibe will show. Reach out to me for anything." And Closet Squanchy says, another point of view is my ex had a best girlfriend who was a lesbian. I could have sworn she was starting fights between us out of jealousy, leaving her underwear in the middle of his apartment when she changed, etc. I look crazy because she's a lesbian. He would tell her everything, even in situations he told her about because he knew he was in the wrong and wanted advice. She would say, oh no, you did nothing wrong, your girlfriend is terrible. I tried so hard to be this woman's friend. She would go great lengths to avoid being in the same room as me. In the end, after I had enough and dumped him for the only reason of this meddlesome lesbian, it turned out she professed a love for him and had a big fat crush on him the whole time, and was not a lesbian. My ex was shocked and we are still good friends. The two of them are not. I would not try dating him again, however, because never once did he believe a word I said about her, when in the end I was 100% right. Anyways, that's another point of view for OP to consider. And Alisong89 says, similar happened with my ex. He promised that a girl he was chatting to on PS was a random from another country. They would talk online and I could hear their conversations, and he was always really flirty. After I dumped him, she came into my work to tell me they had been sleeping together for years and that she won. I was like, cool, you can have him. His great plans for life were to wait for his grandma to die and live in a granny flat in his parents' backyard. I told her he kept texting me after we broke up, begging for me back and threatened to kill himself, and I showed her the texts. I wonder if they're still together. Lol. Now I turn this one to you guys. What would you do in this situation? Say if your partner was, friends with someone from the opposite sex, and would you be jealous of that, or would you say that's like totally normal behavior? Would there be any tiny bit of jealousy at all? Let me know how you would feel and how you would deal with it in the comments below. And our next story is from Dat Throwaway Dobra. My 32 male wife, 32 female, recently decided she wants kids after finding out she has a medical issue. I wanted kids originally, but I'm hesitant now. Background: married for nearly 2 years, been together for 7. My wife is a therapist who lived in PA all her life. I'm a surgical resident, originally from California, hoping to go back soon after I finish residency. When my wife and I started dating, my wife was very vocal about the fact that she didn't want children. She didn't like the idea of what the process of pregnancy would do to her body and was generally scared of the whole process. I wanted children, but I understand her concerns and did not feel it to be a deal breaker at the time, as I was flexible about my desire for children. We were 26 at the time. Suffice to say, at this time, I kind of put away my desire to have children, as it wasn't something I absolutely needed, and our life wasn't in a position to explore that anyway. I wasn't going to keep beating my wife over the head with conversations about reconsidering children. Recently, my wife has been experiencing a lot of abdominal pain, which prompted a workup from her OB. Her family has a history of adenomyosis and endometriosis. I don't know if I pronounced this correctly. And her mother and grandmother both have hysterectomies young. They discovered that she has endometriosis. After weighing all the options, she was advised that she could undergo further work up for possible surgery, or we could try to have children if she wanted to, and she could pursue a hysterectomy afterwards. In the meantime, she was placed on birth control and advised to stop the placebo weeks of medication to suppress her cycle completely. This workup was completed a year ago and her pain has returned. She went for a visit again, same conversation. So my wife and I had a sit down about what children would mean and whether that's something we wanted to re-examine. Her approach to the topic was that she was open to children. At the time, I didn't feel that was sufficient, and I told her I didn't want children with someone who simply were open to them and didn't want them. As much as I wanted children, I needed to know that my partner's desire for them matched mine. We tabled the conversation again at this point to allow her to think on it. This was about 6 weeks ago at this point. A lot has happened since then, including the death of 2 of her close family members, one just this last week. This morning, my wife woke up and informed me that she had thought about it and she was interested in trying for children. Knowing that my wife has been emotionally troubled since the death of her grandma this week, I didn't know how to approach the conversation sensitively, to let her know that we didn't need to talk about this while she was grieving, but also that I needed some time to think about it since it was a big change from what she had said previously. She responded to this telling me that she felt like I was rejecting her and immediately started questioning if there was some other reason I wasn't excited for what she was telling me. Admittedly, as much as I want children, it's not a deal breaker for me to not have them. The things that scare me about the situation are that my wife has been pretty depressed since COVID began. She sees clients exclusively from home and feels isolated, and is amplified even more with the death of her family members. I found myself admittedly wondering how she would cope with the responsibility of a child during the time when I'm at a hospital and can't help relieve the stress of childcare from her. My wife had moments where she gets extremely frustrated and freezes due to her emotional stress, instead of thinking of alternate solutions and being upset later. This is odd to me because I make a living specifically off of not freezing and figuring out a solution and being upset later. Also, I've lived in PA for nearly 10 years at this point and plan to pursue a fellowship and eventually someday move back closer to home in California. My wife has expressed extreme concerns about leaving her family behind, being so far away. Enough to the point that it concerns me that if I were to make a match or take a job somewhere she didn't like, I'd honestly have to think about her emotional well-being, or she would leave me altogether. These conversations have become downright heated at times. Adding a child into this seems exceptionally more difficult and like something I need to figure out after I'm comfortable with where we end up relocating to. So I'm here sitting, thinking about my whole relationship now, because as much as I want children, I don't know what it means for us, whether she truly wants them, or this is because the possibility that she may need a hysterectomy exists. Also, I'm very hesitant to discuss this when the death of her grandmother is very fresh in our minds. They were extremely close. And Megnog21 says to this, I think you should be prepared for the fact that if you have children, your wife will insist on raising them in Pennsylvania. And Sweet Potato says, have you talked with her about what would happen if she were to become pregnant, then you would receive a fellowship in California? And OP replies, my family have been supportive and absolutely made themselves available to her for anything she needed, whether we have travelled for home for a trip or there is something we've been going through at home and they're across the country. I ask her about her feelings related to California all the time. I rarely get past the fact that she doesn't want to leave her family, that she had never been in California for an extended period of time and doesn't know if she would like it. And Jel Falmore says, and quotes, wife is a therapist who lived in PA all her life. I'm a surgical resident, originally from California, hoping to go back soon after I finish residency. And then says, it's absurd you two ever married. You knew from the start you had an unsolvable two-body problem. And OP replies again saying, this is one way to see it. We discussed this early in our relationship and I agreed at that point to forgo attempting to match in California so that she could have the best chance to be local to her family while I was in residency. We luckily landed about 90 minutes away from them. As time goes on, PA isn't for me in the long term and this isn't where I want to set up forever. I've been pretty upfront about this and honest. I respect your point. Thanks. Now I turn it to you guys. Have you guys ever been in a similar situation? It's quite a tough one, I think. Especially with everything going on and the grieving in there as well. A lot to think about. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Now once again guys, thank you for being here today. I hope you have enjoyed today's stories. I like to touch on r/relationships once in a while because there's some good stories on there. Some that's really sort of thought-provoking. But anyway, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate your time. If you want to support the channel further, you can do by clicking that join button down below or clicking the link to Patreon and heading over there and joining there. It is all really appreciated, but never any pressure to do so. And I will see you in the next one. Much love guys. Take care now. Bye bye.